So welcome to A Better Restart, the future of work for young people. I am Chris Perez from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, and I will be your MC for this morning's conference. This conference is organized by the KS and the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, or TAEF. The youth are particularly vulnerable to the disruptive changes taking place in the global economy, education, and in the job market. Pre-pandemic trends such as automation, digitalization, and globalization have changed the way that people live and work. However, COVID-19 has further complicated young people's lives by affecting them deeply and disproportionately. So given these circumstances, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung's Regional Economic Program in Asia and the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation are organizing this conference, A Better Restart, the future of work for young people, which will discuss in depth the trends and patterns within the global youth education and labor environment. So to formally welcome to this morning's conference, we have here the country representative of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, and at the same time, the director of the Regional Economic Program Asia, Ms. Rabea Brouwer. Rabea?
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone. So you want me to start, Chris, right?
Yes.
So thank you very much for handing over. It is a pleasure to see you all and warmly welcome all of you to our conference on the future of work. For the 3 years now, the past 3 years, Chris, you just said it, this subject brings together TAEF and KAS and forged a fruitful partnership and even a bond between our two organizations. And I like to thank the organizers and colleagues at TAEF to support the work of KAS Regional Economic Program for such a long time. And I also like to thank my colleagues, you, Chris, and Sakuya Iwakawa for guiding our regional program and for preparing this conference so well in conjunction with TAEF. So early on, we have wondered how Asia's thriving youth will be able to manage the multi-level changes in society and in employment and in education. And in addition, the COVID pandemic has excelled digitalization. It created hybrid work patterns suitable for a changed lifestyle, and it also forcefully produced an adaptive labor market and the emergence of new technologies. And we do know that governments and companies are rushing to embrace the new realities and try to predict the future of economy, of labor, and welfare. And as a consequence of that, employers have to become resilient to potential disruptive impacts on job advances in robotics and artificial intelligence. I mean, this much we all know. But at the same time, employers are likely to face skills vacuums where we are not fast enough to develop skills for the newly emerging business fields. And our youth, in consequence, can only adapt to the rapid changes and thrive if they are well supported and well educated. But above all, young people must be future suitably educated, I might say. And Chris, you just said it in your intro remarks. From the studies, we know that pre-pandemic trends such as automatization, digitalization, and globalization have changed indeed the way people, especially young people, learn, live, and work. And COVID-19 has further complicated their lives by affecting them deeply and disproportionately. We wrote this in our intro remarks to the conference. And one reason for this is the lack of proper and suitable education, not only in the past, but also in the present. So let us apply today a positive attitude and look at the opportunities and chances to possibly influence the future and perhaps long-term perspectives. We like to discuss with you in the next 2.5 hours the trends and patterns that we currently see and which could help shaping the bespoke opportunities for the young people and soon enough for the young workforce. So today allow me to add this. We present 2 panels that look into notable systemic changes as well as the newly emerged labor market trends, and we will discuss how those have or will impact our young people. And developing from there, we intend to further discuss what can be done to bridge the demands of the labor market and how to confront the current limitations of the education sector. So it is our aim today to provide a platform for new policy ideas that help to, as Chris nicely said, future-proof education guidelines and career opportunities. And for this, we are joined, I am joined by a proud number of international experts from ILO, from academic institutions across Asia, and corporate partners, as well as HR institutions. And together with you, together with them, you have the opportunity, you and the audience, to question education needs, skill sets, and corporate support. And with that, I like to thank all our prestigious speakers for joining us today and for sharing your insights to achieve a better restart for the emerging young workforce. And now I like to hand over to the chairman of Taiwan-Asia Foundation of TAEF, Dr. Michael Xiao. Thank you very much, Dr. Xiao, for supporting the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and our regional program SOPAS so well over the past years. We can be, both of us, both of our organizations, we can be very proud of our studies and publications and the contributions that we made to the future of work of our young people in Asia. So over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Brower. Colleagues from CAS, SOPAS, and Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, I would like to welcome all participants joining us today in this Better Restart, the Future of Work for Young People's online conference. It is a pleasure to meet you all today, even though it's only online. First of all, we are very honored to work with CAS for the second time this year since we launched the Asia Youth and Future of Work project in 2020, for which we hosted 4 online seminars in the past 2 years. In these seminars, we discussed the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on future work opportunities for young people, particularly in Taiwan, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. With insights from government representatives and scholars, we are excited to continue this partnership with CAS to further extend the discussion on trends and challenges facing youth employment policies at a time when the pandemic is seeing the light at the end of tunnel. In the past 3 years, COVID-19 pandemic has spread globally and transformed our way of life with the greatest impact on everyone's job situation. There were massive business shutdowns, causing a surge in unemployment across countries. In this case, unemployment among the youth is the highest of any group. In many countries, the young unemployment rate is 3 to 7 times that of other adult age groups. To give you a rough picture, in Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, the youth only make up 10 to 15% of the total labor force, but at the same time, representing between 20 to 45% of the unemployed population. So the figure can tell you how serious it has been. In addition to the impact of the pandemic itself, there are also some megatrends simultaneously happening, such as the digital transformation, aging society, social inequality, and climate change. Together, these macro factors have created a new landscape of work that are long-term, structural in nature. In order to meet these challenges or tap into the opportunities, both nations and regional approaches are really are needed. This is why we think continuing our partnership with CAS Japan office and especially SOPAS are extremely important. Actually, we can bring young leaders in the region in a network so that they can support each other and create some policy solutions, recommendations to their own countries. On the other hand, we can foster collaborations between like-minded countries, along with our Taiwan's New Southbound Policy initiative to foster, to generate, and workable and sound policies in solving the regional youth job problems. Under the consideration policy to invite invite policymakers, scholars, and NGOs to engage useful discussion, issues related and policy relevance is very important. So that this is the purpose and objective of this conference today. I hope all of us can benefit from the discussion and some recommendations can be formulated and even some campaign can be launched to the respective countries and regional organizations. Please enjoy the conference and have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brower and Professor Shao, for introducing the conference comprehensively and for welcoming the participants. Now, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning's conference. Ms. Chao Ting Wang is currently the Senior Executive Officer of the Ministry of Labor in Taiwan. She holds a master's degree in social work from the National Taiwan University and has been devoted to government agencies since 2004. She has started her career as a Senior Executive Officer in the Ministry of Labor. Currently, she is in charge of labor force development and employment service and has extensive experience in overseas visitations and international conferences. Ms. Wang was appointed as representative of the ministry in 2019 International Workforce Development Week held by the WAPES. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Ms. Chao Ting Wang.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to share Taiwan's experience with you. And my presentation will include current situation of youth employment situation in Taiwan and the program to solve the youth unemployment problem. The measures especially for youth during the pandemic and the conclusion. Taiwan is also facing the problem of declining birth rate. According to the analysis of 2021, the youth labor force participation rate was lower than the overall labor force participation rate, but with the trend increasingly year by year. Similar to the situation in other countries, the youth unemployment rate was higher than the overall national unemployment rate, accounting for 2.22 times the overall rate in 2021. In 2021, the number of unemployed youth was 204,000, The average unemployment period for youth was about 19.38 weeks, which was lower than the overall unemployment period. This statistic shows that in terms of personal factors, the unemployment problems encountered by Taiwanese youth are mainly inexperienced and not knowing what's suitable for them, which accounts for about 50%, followed by the lack of appropriate skills. To help young people smoothly integrate into workforce employment after graduation, a 4-year program has been promoted through interministerial cooperation since 2019 from 4 aspects: industry trends, career planning, skills development, and employment services. The program provides differentiated service measures according to the different employment needs of young people at different stages, including 5 types. For in-school youth, first, various ministries and associations will promote the service of enhancing career counseling and employment preparation, with the purpose of encouraging young people to understand and explore their own interests as early as possible. In addition, the Ministry of Labor and Ministry of Education cooperated with the resource of industry and schools to provide high-quality training and hope to increase the number of trainees by 5% year by year, so that young people can learn school knowledge and practical skills in the industry at the same time. To help youth looking for a job for the first time, the Ministry of Education surveys senior students of university who are willing to accept government employment service and forwards the student list to Ministry of Labor. Then, the Ministry of Labor will take the initiative to contact and provide employment assistance before students' graduation. Also, the follow-up tracking of students' employment flow will be fed back to the Ministry of Education to serve as a reference for the adjustment of the departments of universities. In addition, the Ministry of Labor will subsidize training costs for young people who are unemployed and participate in key industry-related training. For young people who are unemployed for more than 6 months, we focus on 3 measures to prevent young people from becoming long-term unemployed. First, through in-depth employment consultation, public employment service staffs help young people clarify their career direction and understand suitable jobs for them. Then, through the job card on the career resume, we show the youth advantages to employers to help young people find jobs. Next, according to their needs, staffs refer them to institutions to provide a 3-month experiencing and learning opportunities in the workplace. Third, if a young person finds a job within 3 months after the in-depth employment consultation and works for the same employer for 3 months, a one-time employment incentive will be issued. To continuously upgrade youth employability in service youth who participate in training courses organized by the Ministry of Labor in conjunction with various groups can receive a subsidy of up to 70,000 NT dollars per person for training expenses every 3 years. In addition, enterprises are also encouraged to send young employees to participate in external training courses, and 70% of training costs can be subsidized. To help a typical employment young people change to regular jobs, we subsidize enterprise up to 45,000 NT dollars to provide full-time jobs to enable young people to change jobs. And through 3 to 6 months of job training and one-on-one workplace mentors to guide and strengthen the skills of young people. Due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the labor market, as well as in consideration of young graduates who are often encountered obstacles to find jobs, we have promoted various employment assistance and training programs since 2020. In order to support fresh graduates to actively search for jobs and reduce the pressures of job seeking for those who are still unable to find jobs, if they can complete the job preparation activities and the number of job searches required by the plan. During the job search period, a job seeking allowance will be provided in stage for a period of 3 months. To prevent fresh graduates from waiting and delaying employment due to the impact of the pandemic on the job market, a one-time employment rewards of 20,000 NT dollars will be issued for fresh graduates who are employed by the end of September 2022 and remain employed for 3 months. For those who continue to be employed for 6 months, an additional 10,000 NT dollars will be subsidized. To encourage young people to participate in training courses of key industries such as electronic motors, a subsidy of 100,000 NT dollars is provided. Learning incentives will be also provided during the training period. After the young people are employed, the company will design practical training courses according to the job content, handle job training, and arrange workforce mentors. A subsidy will be issued to enterprise up to 108,000 NT dollars per person to provide young youth on job training and employment opportunities. In my conclusion, with the rapid development technology and internet, also in response to the impact of the pandemic, enterprise has put more emphasis on digital applications and transformation. Existing job opportunities may be a risk of disappearing. Manpower and skills needs emerge as the times require. To make full use of youth resources, future direction will continue to help young people explore themselves, understand industry trends, and workplace, and nurture their employability to respond to industry development trends. So young people can be the right person in the right place. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wong, for sharing and highlighting the preparatory activities that the Taiwanese government is undertaking to prepare the young people for these future work trends. So now we will go to our first panel. But first, let me introduce the moderator for our first panel on what is at stake, the systemic changes and post-pandemic labor market trends. Our moderator is Professor Michael Shin-Won Shao, the chairman of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation and the chairman as well of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at the National Cheng Chi University. Professor Shao is also an adjunct research fellow of the Institute of Sociology, Academia Sinica, and professor of sociology at National Taiwan University and National Sun Yat-sen University. He is also the chair professor of Hakka Studies at the National Central University. Professor Shao served as National Policy Advisor to the President of Taiwan between 1996 and 2006 and is also currently Senior Advisor to the current President of Taiwan. His areas of specialization include middle class, civil society, and democratization in Asia, environmental movements, sustainability and risk society, and comparative Hakka studies in Taiwan and Southeast Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator for the first panel, Professor Shao.
Thank you, Ms. Paris, for your kind introduction. And okay, let's move to the panel one. The panel one title is What is at Stake? Systematic Change and Post-Pandemic Labor Market Trends. And so we will present a macro description of what is going on and what has been impacted by the pandemic. So we are honored to have three presenters. So let me introduce the first speaker first, and then after the first speaker, then I will introduce the second one. The first speaker is Dr. Jayant Menon, and he is the senior fellow at the Singapore's ISIS Yusof Ishak Institute. So, Dr. Menon, the floor is yours. You will have 15 minutes to present.
Thank you very much, Professor Xiao. And let me start by thanking the organizers, CAS and TAEF, for having me today. I'm very pleased about this. CAS is a very important partner for ICS Yusof Ishak Institute, where I work in Singapore. And of course, I've had a lot of dealings with the Taiwanese embassy in Singapore as well, meeting your ambassador several times, talking about TPP, CPTPP, and various issues. So I'm very pleased to be here. So I have 15 minutes and quite a bit to cover. Let me start by sharing my presentation. I hope you can see this. Let me know if you can't. Yeah. So what I hope to do with you today, as Professor Xiao just mentioned, is provide a macro perspective, but a broader macro perspective than perhaps my co-panelists will present, because I'm not a labor market specialist. I'm a trade and macroeconomist and also a development economist. So I'll also focus a bit more on the challenges in developing countries, which I think is very important for this region as well. So maybe that's how my presentation might vary a little bit from the others, and hopefully it'll all be complementary in terms of providing an overall picture of the challenges facing youth at the moment in this post-pandemic recovery. So I'll talk a bit about the digital transformation, its pros and cons, and deal mainly on the role for labor mobility in the region in addressing short-run adjustment costs of not just the digital transformation, but also other mega trends taking place that will require greater labor mobility, including, for instance, as Ms. Wong just mentioned, the demographic trends in the region. And if we can't have labor mobility during a period of rising protectionism and anti-globalization sentiment, I'll argue that promoting greater trade liberalization, trade in goods and services, can partly substitute for greater factor mobility, both labor and capital. Then I want to quickly finish off by talking about the longer run policies directly related to preparing the labor force for the challenges that we face, and particularly the youth. Okay, so I think, firstly, the digital economy, as we know, has, as I mentioned, has pros and cons, and it's more than just e-commerce. It affects all forms of service delivery. It is likely to increase inequality both within and between countries, and this will depend on level of development and preparedness, as well as access in terms of the income groups that they fall in. So you can have poor people in rich countries as well. So it's not an issue of poor and rich countries alone. And as we know, there's a lot of disruption to labor markets. And I think a major concern is that automation, robotics, and all other types of labor substituting technology or technological change will mainly start affecting low-skilled, repetitive tasks initially, but it will spread up that skills ladder very quickly, as we've already started to see. Higher skilled work is already being performed by robots in many rich and poor countries. But initially, it will mainly affect the low-skilled workers, and most of them in the developing part of this region, right? That's the bad news. The good news is that there are a lot of positive things that will come out of the digital revolution that can offset some of these effects. I think in the long run, the digital transformation will create more jobs than it displaces, but we live in the short run, and we have to deal with these short run disruptions, and that's why I think we need to focus on the short run, right? And also the short run costs are concentrated amongst usually low skilled workers. The long run benefits are more dispersed over the broader population. So they're also more difficult to appreciate, especially during a difficult period right now of a lot of global uncertainties. But the fourth industrial revolution can increase economic inclusion, and it can do so simply by providing, farmers with smartphones. They don't even need access to the internet. They can get better information about prices, and they can also increase, agricultural productivity. They allow micro and small medium enterprises to access a global market. I think we all are familiar with the many positive effects of this digital transformation. But as I said, despite these positives, the net impact in the short run is going to be negative. And the pandemic, of course, has caused a lot more difficulties, and we are still trying to recover from it during a very difficult period of rising inflation, of rising protectionism. We have a well-known trade war between the US and China that's affecting all of us. And now we even have a real war that's affecting us through rises in commodity prices and so on and so forth. So I think tackling rising unemployment amongst the low-skilled is going to be the key issue, and many of them are young and new entrants to the labor force. And unless we try and address this, there will be a greater move towards the informal sector and greater levels of undocumented cross-border flows of low-skilled workers. In ASEAN already, even before the pandemic, most of the flows were low-skilled. But now, I think after the pandemic, with a lot of barriers raised on labor mobility, the level of undocumented workers will start to rise. Of course, it's difficult to tell because they're undocumented, but there are lots of surveys pointing to that in that direction, right? So heightening the need for greater labor mobility, especially among the low-skilled, is divergent demographic trends. ASEAN and the broader East Asian region is aging, but not all of them are aging at the same rate. And we can see here a chart on ASEAN's ratio of working age to total population from 1950 to 2010. And you can see that it has already peaked around 2010 in many countries. Sorry, this is out to 2100. So in 2010, it's already peaked for many countries, and it's already starting to fall. This is also true in the +5 countries. I'm sorry, I don't have Taiwan here. The data is not available, but I think it is very similar to many other countries listed here, including China and Japan, where you can see that the drop-off has already started and is accelerating. The share of working age population to total population has been falling and will continue to fall into the future. But there are younger populations in this region. The Mekong region, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, and of course India has young populations, right? And so the younger populations are in mostly the poorer countries, while the aging populations are in both rich and poor, right? So there's an obvious case here for increasing labor mobility. This is one of the few win-win case policy options that we have, but because of various sensitivities, we are not grasping that win-win opportunity. What we see instead is a remarkable competition now for skills at the higher end. Countries like Singapore and Thailand have already introduced new programs recently to try and attract highly skilled workers, right? This is a very strong competition, and they are willing to open their borders to high-skilled workers, but there are countries questioning the need to return to pre-pandemic levels of low-skilled workers. Malaysia, for instance, has questioned the need for pre-pandemic levels of migrant workers in low-skilled categories. But then what they are finding is that they can't fill the openings in those skill categories with local workers. Local workers are not willing to do those jobs at those wages. So there is this huge mismatch, and a lot of it, again, is concentrated towards the younger end of the labor force. The highest level of unemployment is among newly graduated students. And this is classic, this is almost a definition of a skills mismatch. And it's being heightened by, these sorts of protectionist policies. There is a rise in nationalism and in anti-globalization sentiment because of the pandemic. It was there before the pandemic, but it's been increased by the pandemic. So the pandemic has increased the need for labor mobility at a time where it is also reducing the appetite for labor mobility because of the rise in anti-globalization sentiment. Now, if we can't do much about labor mobility, then I think increasing trade can substitute to some extent for labor and capital mobility. This is through factor price equalization. We can try and reduce the wage and gaps between countries by increasing trade between countries without factors moving borders. This is one of the interesting things that we know from economic theory, trade theory, but we have a lot of empirical evidence also to show that it does actually exist in the real world. So I think if freeing up low-skilled labor is too sensitive an issue for the various Asian FTAs, then using those FTAs and mega regionals like RCEP and CPTPP and so on to promote trade can reduce those adjustment costs indirectly in the short run. Right? But the real challenge, and I know I'm running out of time, I'll try and finish off with this point. The real challenge, though, is to make long-term systemic changes in the labor market and in our educational systems to deal with the disruption from the digital transformation. And here I want to go beyond just talking about the need for improving technical and vocational education or higher education. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that today, so I won't repeat those points, and they are important points, but I want to provide a slightly different perspective from a developing country point of view, and that is to say that it has to start much earlier, right? It has to start with improving primary and secondary education. Unless we have a proper base at the earlier level of schooling, then TVET will simply substitute for higher for secondary education. And we are seeing that already in Cambodia, where I am right now, that TVET is really substituting for a failure of a proper secondary schooling education. In fact, in countries like Cambodia, we have to start even earlier. We have to start from the first 1,000 days of birth because a serious problem here is malnutrition and stunting. We can see the effects of physical stunting, but what is equally real but less obvious is mental stunting due to malnutrition. So the challenge facing the youth of the future is not just improving education and skills of those in the labor force, but those who will make up the future labor force. So unless we deal with health issues as well, then future entrants to the labor force will not be prepared in the same way to be able to absorb skills and knowledge. Physical stunting is also reflected in mental stunting, which limits absorptive capacity of the next generation of workers. And this is something we often forget about, but is very real. But the skills mismatch of the current youth is a real problem. We can see that in the beverage curves, which measures unemployment as a share of vacancies. And these curves have been shifting outward following the pandemic. And there's a lot of evidence of this in the US, but also in developing countries. So we need to look at improving skills development and lifelong learning. And I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that. But as I said, I want to emphasize the need for creating a much better base with primary and secondary education, and also improving health outcomes, so that we have the current youth and the future youth in the labor force better prepared to deal with the many challenges posed by the digital transformation. A final point is that it's not just, again, the skills development or education program, but complementary policies like deepening local capital and financial markets, so that they, through FDI, so that labor can become more productive. We know that improving capital inflows can improve labor productivity, and this is critical at the moment because we are talking about reshoring and nearshoring and reversing FDI flows at a time where we should be encouraging it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I went over time a little bit, but let me stop there, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mellon. I did not mention that Dr. Mellon also held the used to work at ADB and held various academic jobs in Australia, especially in University of Melbourne, Monash, and Victoria University. So thank you very much, even though it takes longer time, but I think we grasp a lot of macro trend. My immediate response is, can digitalization include everyone? You know, you mentioned about inclusion, and then what about exclusion? So we can talk about that. Can be a policy challenge in the years to come. So we will leave that for now. Thank you very much. Let me introduce the second speaker. Second speaker is Dr. Upalat Kawatanasakul. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name.
It's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, and he's an associate professor, School of Social Science at the Waseda University, and he is a international development economist and interested in global value chain, informal economy, labor market, and so on and so forth. And also he collaborating with major international organizations such as the Asian Development Bank Institute. So he holds a PhD in international studies, majoring in international economic analysis from a graduate school of at the Graduate School of Asia Pacific Studies at the Waseda University, where you are teaching now, right? Okay, so Professor Konrad Adenauer, please, now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, the chair, for introducing me. So let me share my screen now. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep, you can. I can. Yes.
Thank you very much. So my name is Upalat, and I'm very honored to be here to share my experience and my observations on the future of the technical and vocational education and training, or TVET. So I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of the organizers and all of the participants today. Okay, so for the agenda for today, I have like few talking points here, and I'm going to walk you through these 4 sections today. So let's start with the challenges of the TVET during the COVID-19. Okay, so TVET faced great challenges, mainly due to its unique characteristic of practical learning or practical skills, or learning by doing, while training centers were closed for the confinement measure during the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has highlighted the existing problems preventing TVET, or the educational program in general, from providing relevant skills and quality training. We can observe the common challenges faced by countries around the globe as follows. So the first one is the lack of general and technological infrastructures, skills, and resources. During the pandemic, distance learning became vital, emphasizing the importance of digital technology and the digitization of TVET curriculum. However, in many countries, we could observe issues such as a lack of ICT equipment and digital resources, low digital literacy, weak internet access, limit digital-based curricula, as well as the low capability of learning facilitators. The second issue or the second challenge was inequality of students and teachers' access to IT-related infrastructure. Most vulnerable students and trainees were most likely to lose touch with the system. They faced the problem of discontinuing TVET training during confinement and were likely to drop out of the system during the pandemic. Specific attention should be given to women and also disadvantaged groups of students. The next challenge was about the difficulty keeping students engaged in learning and studying. So this issue is the consequences of the first and the second issues. TVET requires equipment and tools that students cannot access at home and depends heavily on learning by doing. Moreover, there is a lack of staff capacity to support distance learning through quality pedagogical resources. And the last but not least, which is the challenge on the exacerbating skills gap and other social disparities. So the COVID-19 pandemic and the fourth industrial revolution, or the Industry 4.0, worsened the skills gap and the gender disparity in the TVET and also in the labor market, signaling the importance of digital, technical, and socio-emotional skills. So from the last challenge, we could also spot some of the opportunities revealed by the pandemic. While facing disruptions, TVET can play a critical role in the different stages of the COVID-19 crisis. In the short term, TVET can be well placed to develop important skills needed to mitigate the impacts of the COVID pandemic. Short skills development programs can be part of the policy response by targeting jobs in the short supply and high demand. Examples include upskill health sector workers and reskilling workers to shift to essential sectors temporarily, ranging from agriculture to e-commerce, or supporting workers in manufacturing firms that modify their operations to address shortages of medical material, such as surgical masks. Skills development programs can also help workers adapt to new working conditions, especially by keeping the worker on the workplace safe or engaging in telework. So as economies recover or in preparation for the post-pandemic, TVET can contribute to the economic rebound and build back better programs and skill developed systems. So the pandemic is a pretest for the fourth industrial revolution, or the Industry 4.0, and has shed light on the existing problems preventing educational programs from providing relevant skills and quality training. So now let's see the implications on the youth and the labor market. So the crisis creates a lockdown generation that will feel the weight of this crisis for a long time. Young people's employment prospects are severely challenged as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The youth was hit harder than the adults in the immediate crisis and will bear higher economic and social costs, particularly those from the TVET system, where students or trainees are most likely to lose their practical training opportunities and may decide to drop out of the system. Nearly half of young workers are employed in the sectors hit hardest by the crisis. This is one of the reasons that young people face greater labor market disruption and job loss than adults. and it is compounded by the forced suspension of education and training, which will affect youth transitions to and within labor markets, and could result in scarring effects. Being unemployed at a young age can have long-lasting scarring effects on career paths and future earnings. And next, we can also derive implications for the labor market. So for the demand side, the pandemic has emphasized the crucial importance of many practical service sector jobs. These essential workers include healthcare professionals, child and elder care workers, grocery store employees, logistics workers, and ICT support staff. TAEF potentially delivers short-term, target, and modular training to upskill workers in essential sectors rapidly and to reskill individuals to engage in emergency response. As suggested in the previous discussion, this would also encourage TAEF students, trainees to engage in on-the-job training and also emergency response. Moreover, the future of work in post-pandemic reveals continued growth for workers in STEM fields and healthcare. For the supply side, rapid adaptability such as prompt upskilling and reskilling is the key to resilient. So TAEF system can develop the skills needed in the labor market by promoting lifelong learning to upskill and reskill TAEF trainees and graduates for career advancement. Therefore, to meet the equilibrium or to reduce the mismatch between the TAEF system and the labor market, conducting a pulse check on industry and commerce is integral to better understanding the skills required to partake in an emerging industry. Okay, so I have maybe 3 minutes more. So I would like to end my presentation with some of the policy response. So the first one is about the digitizing and adapting learning environments. So we have experienced 6 to 8 years worth of digitalization within just 1 or 2 years during the pandemic, especially in the e-commerce sector. So we see the importance of reimagining and redesigning TAEF curricula and learning and teaching methods, and take disadvantage of the crisis to strengthen and improve TAEF system through digitalization. So TAEF institutions can be as resilient as possible, despite knowing that not all TAEF teaching can be digitalized. So issues such as lifelong learning for career advancement, guaranteeing continuity of learning, and maintaining a connection between learners and trainers and companies are also points of consideration. And the next policy response should be about the improving employability. So the current economic situation is resulting in highly volatile labor markets, and to address this, TAEF stakeholders focus on new methods for improving employability, aligning skills supply to skills demand, and promoting public-private partnerships. And last but not least, adapting to new labor market needs is another important policy response. So given the global push toward digitized services, automate production methods, and the growing importance of technology industrial process, labor force needs are changing. So the future labor markets will require a constant evolving range of skills to meet the challenges of digitalization and the fourth industrial revolutions, such as digital upskilling and reskilling. Therefore, public-private partnerships to strengthen a three-way collaboration between employers, students, and also educational institutes are vital to creating the labor supply that meets the labor demand. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Upalat. Thank you for your interesting and comprehensive remark. I think your presentation really echoed what the Dr. Mellon talked about, the changing labor market and even changing the way works is being laid out. And also the question is, as you mentioned, is to what extent can every young people can be employed, given the new situation, and how can they improve their, you call it, employability. I think it is a very good term to focus. But then my question is really the market will be completely different from the pandemic era, you know? As I asked Dr. Mellon, is can this digitalization has a limit or not? Can every blue collar can be taught, can be trained to adapt to the digital economy, digital labor market? But I think we will leave that for now too. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the third speaker, Dr. Christian Vigilan. Am I correct? Vigilan is a senior economist at the regional office for Asia and the Pacific of the ILO in Bangkok. He joined the ILO in 2011 and spent several years at the ILO's research department in Geneva before moving to Bangkok in 2018. His research focused on labor economics, the future of work, international trade, global value chain, and macroeconomics. And he has also been a member of the ILO, which is very important experience to us in this seminar, is an ILO-wide task team on COVID-19 and has been undertaking extensive research in the labor market impact of the ongoing crisis. So you are the one we needed to add the wisdoms we already heard about it. So Christian, please start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much for this very kind introduction, and for the organizers of this event, for inviting me. So it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I think my previous fellow panel speakers have already outlined that the situation is pretty challenging, and I just thought it's a good idea to kind of visualize it as well and show you a couple of charts to really highlight that we are really witnessing challenging times, and especially for young people. So I do hope that you can see my slides. So I would like to start a little bit with the macroeconomic environment, which is globally, but also in the Asia Pacific region, very challenging. And I do think that this chart highlights this pretty well. So what do I show here? So I do show here the GDP of the Asia Pacific economy. So it's set to 100 in 2019. And then the blue line shows you how GDP would have evolved probably without the COVID pandemic. So these are the IMF's. So this is based on the IMF's estimates and projections that were done in October 2019 before the COVID pandemic. And we see this continuous upward trend. So very solid continuous growth of the Asia Pacific economy. But then, this is not what happened, as we all know. So, the latest IMF projections, so that's actually the yellow line. So where we see that in 2020, this gap has opened up clearly because of the COVID pandemic. So the Asia Pacific economy as a whole has in fact shrunk, so became smaller, which is actually quite exceptional. And then we have seen some recovery in 2021, but by far not enough to close that gap. And then we even now are seeing even a little bit of divergence again, from this pre-COVID expected growth path. And so why is this happening? I think Jayant has mentioned some of the factors. I mean, inflation is also a major issue in many countries of the Asia-Pacific region. So in many countries, we see inflation rates above the central bank targets and creating really major challenges for people and their incomes as well. And worldwide, incomes are less valuable. So I mean, the purchasing power decreases, which has also impacts on consumer confidence. And I do think that perhaps like a lot of the impact will still be felt in the near future, especially in the Asia Pacific region, which is like very much integrated into global value chains, which is sometimes referred to as a factory of the world. And if global consumer demand is going down, due to all these uncertainties and inflation and so on, then this will certainly hit some of the countries in this region very hard. But we have also seen in some countries, very sharp monetary policy tightening with some spillover effects to developing economies as well. And the fiscal space as well, like to provide support to the economy is for sure now narrower than it used to be before the COVID crisis. And all this is really creating major challenges, which of course create general challenges to create jobs, but especially also to create jobs for young people, which is very important. Another chart that I wanted to show you is really the chart that shows you the recent trends in employment split up for adults and youth. And we do clearly see that, so this is employment, the percentage change relative to 2019 before the pandemic. We do clearly see here that young workers have really been much more impacted by the COVID pandemic and are now much more impacted by this current crisis than adult workers. Young women and young men, the effect has been pretty harsh for both of those groups. And then as last chart, what I wanted to show is this one. Because my previous speakers have also talked about education and training, and there is this popular indicator or interesting indicator of the proportion of young people not in education, employment, or training. So that's a so-called NEET rate, where we do see that there have been before the pandemic there has been this persistent gap between young women and young men, which has not really yet closed. And then we do see that during the pandemic, this rate has actually increased quite substantially, which is which is of course creating some major concerns. So these are let's say some of the figures that I wanted to show, and of course this creates some concerns, because we know from previous crises that these type of crises can have long-term impacts on young workers' labor market outcomes. I think Professor Uppalat has already talked about the scaring effects. So these are actually especially relevant at early stages in a person's career. So and also one thing to consider is economic crises tend to affect already the disadvantaged young people the most, because in the chart that I just showed you, on the employment changes, I mean, there's a lot going on that is actually not shown in the chart. So, for example, what we do see is we do see some inequality between countries as well, that young people in developing economies have seen a less pronounced recovery of employment than young people in advanced economies. And also within countries, there's quite some inequality, in the sense that we have seen more job opportunities coming up now in this recovery for high-skilled workers and also high-skilled young workers, as opposed to the lower-skilled workers. So inequality is really an issue here. And we do, I think, can draw on some academic work that has been done, that measures has made an attempt to really measure or really prove these scaring effects. So there was some work, I think, done by various authors, for example, on Brazil or US or different countries. Basically, for example, for the US, there was some work of looking at the employment or labor market trajectory of those that graduated from college, from university during the great financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, and even various years later. one could still see that this youth cohort actually encountered lower wages and lower employment probabilities. So this is, of course, really concerning. So I mean, the situation is grave, but of course, let's say the good news in this is that there is something that policymakers can do to really explicitly focus on young workers, providing them with job opportunities. And so here is perhaps where I also make the link to what was discussed in terms of digitalization, technological progress. So it is really key for governments to now, I mean, this has happened, but I think it should and will happen more. It's key to invest in the digital economy, in digital infrastructure as well, in skills trainings, to really endow everyone with digital skills that are required to in fact excel in this economy. But another important area of investment that we have not really touched yet upon is the green economy, obviously. So it is very important that investments are being done into that economy. And green economy, digital economy, these I think are both areas where especially young workers might have actually some promising opportunities there, with their creativity, really to find innovative solutions, which undoubtedly are necessary given the challenging circumstances. Yeah, and on the whole, in terms of labor market policies, I think public employment services do play an important role. Social protection does play an important role because if young workers are really, let's say, forced to accept the next best job that comes around the corner, even if it's an informal, low quality job, if they are forced to do that just because of economic needs, then this is of course not ideal, because the ideal scenario would be that young workers do have enough time to really find a job that matches their skills, which is then of course also good for the whole economy. Then I think also generally I think it's important to really put the youth up front and center into employment or labor market policies in general, because what we have seen in the past is often some let's say ad hoc measures here and there that governments implement, but I think what is really needed is a coherent strategy that really focuses on young workers specifically. And of course, paying some attention also to those young workers that are in a less disadvantaged position. And perhaps one last point is when thinking about these skills development policies, reskilling, upskilling, lifelong learning, and so on, I do think that when a couple of years ago we have done some work looking at countries or Asia Pacific countries' strategies for the future of work. We have looked at what are their plans in terms of skilling. Sometimes when you read those plans, you do get a little bit the impression that countries think that, or governments think that within overnight one can make, let's say, out of a taxi driver suddenly a software engineer, which is obviously not the case. So I do think that these plans also need to be realistic and designed in such a way that it's really that everybody and every young worker that can really benefit from those skills policies. And with this, perhaps I'm concluding and look forward to the further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. I think it's very true that you mentioned about three major issues here: is unequal impact, uneven recovery, and uncertainty. You cannot make a taxi driver to be an engineer overnight, or maybe the taxi driver doesn't want to be an engineer, and he has no condition to be an engineer. So my question to you is, I think is very important. It seems to me the economic recovery is a necessary condition for improving the for young youth employment situation. Now, can and will the country's recovery policy, recovery measure, make sure they give the priority to, or will they give the priority to make sure that young people can get job back, or can increase the job opportunities? In Asia, and we know that unemployment has always been a long-lasting problems. So the pandemic only makes it worse. So the unemployment is not just a new thing. Unemployment has been an old issue. So I think it's how can we make sure that the recovery policy can pay special attention to the young people, and will they make a policy conflict? Okay, so I think thank you very much, Christian. Now the time is running out. I'm sorry that, but still I wanted to give the opportunity to the three speakers to respond to the question I raised. My question may be naive, but may reflect some many concern layman's interest. Okay, so let's start with Dr. Menon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Xiao, and I've enjoyed listening to my co-panelists. Let me start by telling you about a seminar I was listening to yesterday with the ADB, where Professor Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner, was giving a talk about a lot of issues, but including youth and education and the future. And he referred to a World Bank study that has just come out that has shown that in low and lower middle income countries around the world together, the number of young people after the pandemic who cannot construct a full sentence is now increased from around 50% to 70%, right? So this is a very basic educational skill, right? To be able to comprehend and construct a basic sentence. So this is the real challenge we are facing in the fallout of the pandemic that is now potentially excluding a large proportion of the future labor force going forward. You mentioned the concerns about exclusion. This is a classic demonstration of rising exclusion in poor countries, right? Poor and middle income countries, not just poor countries. Yeah. And again, let me give you another illustration. I'm here, as I said, in Cambodia, and when I visited a lot of the firms in the special economic zones, a lot of them were Japanese firms involved in the global supply chain. Their concern was not that they didn't get enough trained workers. Their concern was they had difficulty with getting trainable workers, right? So the basic literacy and cognitive skills is what they were asking for from the public education system to provide, so that they are happy to provide on-the-job training for their workers, but they need them to have the basic grounding and the basic skills, literacy and cognitive skills, to be able to absorb the types of specialized training they were willing to pay for and provide. So I think that's the challenge we face. We faced it even before the pandemic, but the pandemic has increased the need and the urgency to deal with this type of basic level training, let alone the higher skilled requirements of coming out of the digital disruptions. So let me just stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jayant. It is true that the poorer country face more serious problem of exclusion, and that is beyond the pandemic impact. With or without the pandemic impact, I think the poorer country face exactly the same issues, I think. Okay, so next one, Apalat, that's your turn to respond briefly.
Yes, I try my best. So you were asking about this, like whether it will be completely different from the pre-pandemic era. So my short answer is that like actually the COVID-19 pandemic is just the catalyst of the digitalization or the industry 4.0. So, because like all the countries, like developed countries and developing countries, we try to aim for this like new development method, right? Or like this industrial revolution. So that's why I think it won't be completely different because we trying to aim for these digital technologies or like digital economy. But the thing is like the COVID-19 point out the fact that like Tibet does not really is not really ready for this change because we can see that like there are very lack of this digital skill or like digital technologies or like digital infrastructure like in the Tibet system. So that's why the COVID-19 like give us a like wake up call that like we should be ready by now or by like maybe 1 or 2 years like from now, so that like we can respond more quickly to the labor market because they need more people who can work on like digital who have more like digital skills. And then as Dr. Jayant was saying about this like literacy, so I really agree with that. And the thing is like we really have to prepare like our like youth or the Tibet like students like to be able to be resilient like to all the crises. So they have to have like certain set of skills that they can transfer or they can move around like when they face some kind of like employment in one sector, then they can move quickly or adjust quickly to another sector. So this is my response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abelet. Okay, Christian.
So I'll try to share my views. Like you were asking, like what to do in order to really, let's say, put the issue of youth employment opportunities really front and center to the economic recovery strategies of countries. So I think three factors are essentially important there. Maybe many more, but I would just like to mention three factors. So on the one hand, I think first, I think it's really important to have like a broad-based government commitment to help support young workers. Why? Because like oftentimes like labor market issues, like they are dealt with within the labor ministries and also education ministries. But very often, to be frank, I mean, of course, it depends on the particular country. These are not like, let's say, the most powerful ministries in a government. So I do think it's really important to get on board like other ministries as well, like Ministry of Finance, Ministry for the Economy, to this common objective. So that's, I think, one point. Second point is that I think, these kind of policies, they of course, like I think, have more chances of being successful if they are really based on a broad consensus in society. And of course, like coming from the ILO, where like we are the UN agencies, where not only the governments are representing the countries, but also the employer associations and the worker organizations. I think social dialogue is really important, like to kind of develop these policies, not only governments alone, but in consultation and together with the trade unions and employer associations. And I think as a third point, we are talking here about young people, and these are policies about young people. I also think it's very key that young people actually do somehow get a voice, so that governments somehow and social partners do manage actually to not just like create policies without actually consulting those that are the ones that are directly affected by those policies. I think this is also really, really key. So this would be my response to your question. Of course, like it's not easy, but I think it's very, very important, to put really the challenges of youth unemployment and also the sometimes poor quality of jobs that young workers have, to put this really as an objective to be improved. I think this is really key moving forward. Thank you.
Christian. Okay, with that note, I think we finished the first session of today's conference. So I think from three wonderful presentations, we really grasped the magnitude of the issue of the youth unemployment issue, and how can we turn this unemployment misfortune into a possible prospect for a new economic recovery scheme, and that every country in Asia is facing, especially for those poorer country has to make reprioritizing their employment policy in their economic recovery schemes. So I think, thank you very much. I'm sure all the audience will benefit a great deal, as I did from the three presentations. So I will end this first session and get back to you to MC.
Thank you very much for the wonderful panel. Thank you. Maybe before we go to session 2, may I ask all of the panelists for session 1 to kindly open their cameras? Let's take a group photo. And may I ask the incoming speakers from panel 2 to please open their cameras so that we can take a photo together with our moderators as well. So Professor Minon, Professor Kurwatadasako, Dr. Vegelan, Professor Shao, please open your cameras for the group photo. And then for the session 2 panel, can we have Professor Shi, Ms. Hien, Mr. Lin, and Professor Asadullah to open their cameras as well so that we can take a group photo of all the speakers? Yeah. Okay, panel 1 speakers are ready. Can we ask our provider to take a photo? Okay, I assume that they are taking it. So 1, 2, 3, smile everybody. Here we go. Thank you very much. Great. So I assume that we are done with the photo sharing. So thank you very much, our speakers, for the very good panel. So now we will proceed with our second panel. Our second panel is on policies that work, future-proofing education policies and career opportunities. So this panel will be moderated by Dr. Alan Hao Young, the Executive Director of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. Dr. Yang also serves as the Deputy Director of the Institute of International Relations and the Executive Director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at the National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. CSEAS is the Secretariat of the Consortium for Southeast Asian Studies in Asia since 2018. Dr. Yang also teaches at the Graduate Institute of East Asian Studies as a Distinguished Professor of Southeast Asia Studies and offers courses related to regionalism and Sino-Southeast Asian relations. Dr. Yang also engages in Track 2 diplomacy in the Asia Pacific. He was the Executive Secretary and Executive Director of the Secretariat of Taiwan's Participatory Group to the Council for Security Cooperation in the Asia Pacific between 2010 to 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator for the second panel, Dr. Alan Hao Young.
Thank you, Chris, for the very kind introduction. Once again, on behalf of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, I would like to thank the endorsement and also the immense help from the CAS. And we have been working with CAS during past 2 years, working on the project entitled The Future of Work for Asian Youth. And during the past webinar and also the events, we found it's really meaningful and also of strategic importance to do the brainstorming on how the government, public sector, as well as the private sector and the think tank and NGO can help and facilitate a better and resilient future for our young people in Asia. So it is also my great pleasure to serve as the moderator for the second session. This session is entitled Policy Works, the Future of Proving Education Policy and the Career Opportunity. And the focus of this session will discuss the skills that the youth will need in the future world of work. And it will look at the current situation and identify the potential challenge or even the ongoing challenge that cause the mismatch in the skills taught by the educational system and those that are needed or will be in demand in the job market. So I would say the key words here is the mismatch. How do the stakeholder to accommodate and also to bridge the gap of the potential mismatch will be important to address among our panelists and speakers. And the follow-up presentation, I will explain that I will introduce each of the speakers' profile first, and then to look forward their presentation, and after that, follow up by a few notes and questions, and then proceed to the second and third subsequent speakers as introduction and then their presentation. So before I introduce the first speaker, I would say that this panel's object is to highlight the demand for technological, social, emotional, and higher cognitive skills for emerging and future jobs. These skills should be discussed and precisely identified to diverse policy recommendations that will increase the youth's probability to be employed and earn decent income and be satisfied in their jobs. So there are three important keywords. That is increase the probability to be employed. The second one is more practical. That is to earn decent income. And finally is more emotional. That is to be satisfied in their jobs. So they will have a strong self-incentive to work better and further. With that introduction, I would like to introduce that today we will have four panelists in this session. The first one is Professor Xie Qinan. Professor Xie is from the Department of Labor and Human Resources, Chinese Cultural University. And the second one, we will have Gabby Yan. Ms. Gabby is currently a project manager of Talent Circulation Alliance program. And the third speaker will be Professor Nias Asadullah, who is the professor of economics from Monash University at the Malaysia campus, and so Southeast Asia leader of the Global Labor Organization. And the fourth one will be Mr. Lin Jifu, currently serving as the chief executive of the Starball, a startup company in Taiwan. So Professor Xie, also known as Qinan Xie, is a professor of the Department of Labor Relations and of Chinese Cultural University. He is a well-known and senior scholar in labor and employment law in Taiwan and has been published more than 100 journal articles. And his latest book was published in this year, entitled The Employment Law of Common Law Country. And he has a long list of publication and also the introduction. He also served as a visiting professor to the School of Labor and Industrial Relations at the University of Philippines. So Professor Xie is familiar with the labor law and environmental law in Taiwan, in Philippines, as well as in the Southeast Asia country. And without further ado, let me invite Professor Xie for your presentation.
Thank you, Alan. And I would like to introduce also Professor Xiao. She was my professor in National Taiwan University 40 years, 50 years ago. For the future work, we still have to look at the dimensions involved with economy and society, maybe global political situations. For me, this is a typist, Chinese typist. When I was a startup, graduate from National Taiwan University, these products is still widely used in Taiwan. We call the period, the era was the third wave. Nowadays, we are in the fourth, we call it Industry 4.1 from German people's idea. And during the 80s and early 90s, these products finished in Taiwan, and we use personal computer. I was lucky that my first job was in E3 Industrial Research Institute of Taiwan. My president was Maurice Huang. Maurice Huang, everybody knows who was that. During that period of time, everybody have to process your Chinese word for official documents with this. Otherwise, you have to use your hand to write Chinese or English, Chinese. So the skills are professionals. But nowadays, for new young kids, they don't understand how to protect. We don't know how to use it. So in light of the new tech of the future, it will be much easier for employers to tailor and balance the needs of their organizations. It will be because of the technologies. You can the employer, for me, employer can, in the low season, it will be they will keep the core employees in a very minimal situations. But actually, after the situations, the core workforce will be significantly reduced. The tendency will not switch back. And because as a result, typical employment will outnumber so-called typical employments. There's a number that the future of work will look in 2030. A typical employment will reduce to 9%. In the US, 9%, it means that 91 people are not protected under typical employments. It means that in non-fixed employments, non-fixed term employments, not part-time employments, there will be only 9% of them. It means what? Your pay you will get less pay. It means what? You may not have health care security. It means what? You may not enjoy protection under the so-called labor standard, healthcare program, a lot of these programs. Without a government intervention, the rapid expansion or reduction of workforce will invite serious workforce fluctuation for our labor markets in the future. It will be drastic fluctuations. So the gig work or the casual work for the workers and the employers will be matched easier. Like we now see the we now you can see the Uber. We now see the B&B, a lot of these kinds of industry or the workers. The innovation will outpace labor and employment regulations. We will see the situation come out very easily during the Industry 4.0. So we have the work may be divided, but we may say that identify the existence of employment relations is very important for the future work, because you will always change the definition. The first is the meaning of work. In my idea, maybe it's still involving a party provide service to the other party. But the standard employment, as I said, may not be applicable to cover many new service providers. It still provides service, but the employee, the one who provides the service, may not be protected under standard employment in the future. Become much complex in telling the relationship between the parties, providing and receiving the service to be employee versus employee, employer, or contracting party and independent contractor, or the other relationship, like the Uber. The platform operator say, I'm not the employer. I'm not contracting party. I'm the go-betweener. Who is the employer? It's a crowd. The crowd asks the so-called anonymous employee to work for them. I'm just a go-betweener. How come I am the employer? How come I have to pay all the health care? Okay, I have to pay all the overtime. I have to pay all the pension. So, for instance, a gig worker, they cannot protect each other. How can they organize as a union to protect them as we practice in the 20th or 19th centuries? So the play in the states, in the market, and even the civic society have to come out proper regime in the future to respond the shock of the future. Actually, we have to come out. We have to think more to come out. More and more regimes or institutions to respond the shocks. So the basis attached, such as social security, fringe benefit, other programs, we have to learn how to respond the serious impact. And the taxation, who had to pay? Employee, platform operator, or the worker on demand will at all times. Even some Japanese friend told me that even they match 1 hour service. So, and the second thing, the institution is that what is work and what is working hour? What is provided service? What is working or not working is hard to tell now. So the tech will be facilitated much better, but how to define is much better. So employee may retain better work-life balance because they can work home, The flexibility is increased, but the win-win, how to find a win-win, it's a new difficult question, problem for us. And workplace policy, how to find the new legitimacy. How to fairly arrange the mix and the remote work. In the case of dismissal disputes, courts may be convinced by an employer who say it must be an employee. It's maybe not a good reason If you are not show up, this may not a good reason. So it may benefit the employee side, the service provider side. The working hour, how to identify the hourly pay worker, how to invite the more hourly pay worker. It's become but hourly pay worker means what? You don't have the health care. The well-being will how to give them, the society or the state, how to define the shifts of schedule, how to define the shift of the schedule. It's become let it become much stable and predictable, and how to create protective measures for the work scheduling shift worker and their family, how to reduce the impact on their economic security, health, well-being, and the precarious schedule designed to enable employers to keep staff in lean should be, should be prohibited, but should be prohibited, but maybe would be, okay? Aiding the shift at the last minute, asking worker to leave shift early, or requiring on-call will become much easier. Maybe if the period of time are not necessarily working time, and then they may not be paid. But should be, will be, okay? Should be prohibited, will be prohibited is my guess. Will be prohibited is my guess, but should be, okay? Employee monitoring, new form of track. There are a lot of apps already available in the market to track all the monitoring the employee, okay? And it involves the privacy of the employee. But in my idea, it may be legitimate that for the employer or the service receiving party to track, okay, to track. And then nowadays we have social media like Line, like messengers. So it actually our Ministry of Labor already studied this issue. Do I have the right to disconnect it? If I disconnect it, then can I be dismissed? Like when they make a call to their employee. If their employee didn't respond it, then you may be discharged, Ms. Guo of the Honghai, the Foxconn. But nowadays, may I? So right to disconnect is imaged to be a worker's right and should be protected. Should be, my meaning is should be. Other than diversity, in terms of the diversity, then the situation may be improved. In my 30 years of serving in this field, I find the diversity issue like gender. We have the gender equality law, and we have protect of the so-called less prestige. It would be easier for the society, for the employer to provide more service, provide more help for those the workers or the newcomers. So human investment program will be continued through the help of the technology to benefit the inclusion of the worker of these less privileged groups. So we find in Taiwan we already find the past 30 years, we already have the help so that we have a much diverse workforce. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Xie, for your wonderful presentation and remark. And so currently, we will proceed to the next speaker. The next speaker is Gabby Yan. Ms. Gabby Yan is currently the project manager, committed member of Taiwan's International Education Initiative. And for many years, she has worked to promote the international education opportunity for colleges and also the universities across the nation. Her effort had made in developing the visibility of Taiwan's institutions of higher education to students around the world. And Gabby has helped facilitate many talented overseas exchanges and also the programs. And currently, she is responsible for the implementing the Talent Circulation Alliance program hosted by Administration for Digital Industry, MODA. So she is very important and a key person for promoting the bidirectional circulation of the talent, especially for the young talents. And she will touch upon the Talent Circulation Alliance and also to share with us the detail of this initiative and project. So without further ado, Gabby, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Young, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Gabby. I'm from the Talent Circulation Alliance program. So to touch base back to our topics today for the future-proofing education policy and career opportunity, I'm going to share about what Talent Circulation Alliance is doing. Talent Circulation Alliance, in short, we also call it TCA, but not equals to Taipei Computer Association. So TCA have been providing supports to youth in terms of offering further education resources and connecting career opportunities. In response to the topic, which we will probably discuss later about what kind of skills should talent have, especially youth talent, I'll also share TCA's observations through implementing this program in the past couple of years. So, what is TCA? TCA, Talent Circulation Alliance, is a public-private partnership between the Taiwanese government, other private sectors, and like-minded countries. Our ultimate goal is to cultivate a deep pool of capable, internationally integrated, and digital-savvy professionals, especially young talent, which is our current focus. We also wanted to decrease the brain drain issues in Taiwan by retaining more international talents in our labor market. Our key stakeholder includes Ministry of Economic Affairs and the newly founded Ministry of Digital Affairs, also American Institute in Taiwan and other foreign missions. We're founded in 2019 with the government sectors, the private sectors, many industry and corporations join us in voicing out the importance of circulating talents between Taiwan and other countries. By 2020, we actually published a white paper to address the obstacle and solutions on how to facilitate future talent development and talent mobility around the world. And then send this white paper to the government sector for further reference. And then we successfully drew a lot of attentions from a lot of private corporations to be partnered with us. And so in 2021, when TCA obtained full funding from the government to actually launch programs for talents in the industry, we create 2 internship programs with our corporation partners or legal entity partners to actually bring international talent into local Taiwanese industry and to send Taiwanese talent out to the world to work with overseas companies. So this is how this is the TCA program mechanism. So it was designed with these 3 dimensions. talent circulation, talent cultivation, and talent connections. So the two internship program that I was mentioning about to help local talents to find international opportunity and for foreign talents to find opportunities to join local industry in Taiwan are part of the talent circulation. So the two types of opportunity actually offers talent to gain real work experience, to get in touch with the industry, to stay connected with the job labor market. The talent cultivation part is to bridge the gap, or say adding more knowledge and skill bases to these talents, to help them to gain different sets of skills, cross-domain knowledge that they might need it in the future. Obviously, we don't know and cannot predict what will happen in the future. A lot of time for the young talent now has to facing a lot of unknowns. So I think that we think the best part is to prepare them for different situation and different environment. In the talent circulation mechanism, we offer free resources, online learning platforms. It can be accessed anywhere around the world. Everything is in English, so students have free learning resources outside of school that can help them to gain skill that they don't learn from school. A lot of students in our program come from non-ICT backgrounds, but they get to learn a lot of ICT, new tech, innovative technologies on AI, or for example, the idea of Web 3.0 through our platform. We also host different workshops and hands-on projects for them to, practice new innovative technology. For example, like big data, or the picture shows on the slide is that we bring students to visit AWS to learn about the cloud services and how to get certified in using those services. With those certificates, it actually add up to the value of the talent. Then the last part is about connection. So we have students who have work experience through our program. We have students who learn cross-domain knowledges and skills from the program. The last part is to get them connected with the industry. And so we do have a job board that allow our partners to find international talent or Taiwanese talent on our site. Job fair was hosted every single year during the graduation seasons, so to connect those young talent that fresh out of school with the industry. So this is how the mechanism work. And then next, I'm going to share what we're doing in the past 2 years. So basically, in the past 2 years, both our outbound program on the right-hand side in pink that helps Taiwanese students, and inbound program on the left to help international students in Taiwan. These are the numbers of talents that we have trained in the last 2 years. I've shown many students' pictures at the bottom. These are all students that successfully developed their early stage of career, either in Taiwan or outside of Taiwan, through the program. So while we're implementing this program, we not only get support from the students telling us about how grateful they are to join this program, because with their own efforts, it's very hard for them to find such a great opportunity to join either the local job market or the overseas market. We also have received many support from our partner companies. These partner companies actually co-host and co-training talent with us. So the mechanism works as when students apply to this program, we match them with the local company or overseas company. The local company and overseas company actually provide hands-on training, mentorship throughout the internship for these students, for them to kind of bridge what their lack of for the job market and help them to gain skills and mindsets that was needed by the industry. So to a lot of our partner company, this TCA platform not only saves them time to finding potential talent that they can hire in the future, it also we also provide them with trained talent with our cultivations programs. These talents becomes very competitive to the job market after they finish the program, and most of them, when they graduate, they got recruited by the company that they're doing internship with. And these are really precious connections that student won't be able to get just fresh out of school. But through these kind of resources, it's really helpful for them to, get extra learning resources, extra training, also, more opportunities with other industry. And so our observation basically through the program is that we see those students who get a jump start ahead of other peers. They have these qualities: cross-domain digital skills, hands-on experience, especially in the problem-solving skills, professional network when they stay connected with industry or the professional in the field that they want to develop on. Is beneficial to them. And the most important is proactive attitude. There are actually a lot of resources out there. A lot of young talent did not pay attention of, so I would encourage talent to, be proactive to find resources nearby. For me, I can at least name 9 talent cultivation program just out of my head, which I show on the screen, provided by the government, training different talent. Some of them focus on high school students, some of them focus on vocational students, some of them focus on college, fresh graduate. They all training in different industry. So for example, 5G industry, artificial intelligence, or big data. So these are the resources that talents are encouraged to find nearby. So in short, that TCA program is are still very skilled, small skills. To be honest, like we weren't able to assist as many talents as who has the needs to, obtain to the resources. But by creating this mechanism, we're hoping to bring more companies and partners on board to do these kind of program on their own as well. And you're very welcome to copy the mechanism to different parts of the world, to different countries, to help their local talent as well. And which is why I'm super honored to be on this panel today to share what is TCA doing, what our mechanism is. And I'm look forward to the discussions in a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby, for your very comprehensive introduction to the TCA. Although you are very humble to address that TCA is very small and also not extensively promoted, but I do find that the activities and also variety of events initiated by TCA that has already extended very important connection and network between Taiwan's young talent and also with the international partners. I think I have a very quick question, and also I'm curious, since the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation has been devoted to facilitate Taiwan's new southbound policy. So I'm very curious to learn from you that in terms of the outbound and also inbound activities of the TCA, is there any, positive response or the involvement from the new southbound policy partner country, that is the 18 neighboring country in Asia? How is the scale and also the percentage of the involvement from the new southbound policy partner country in Taiwan's TCA networking? This is the first quick question I would like to address to you. And the second one is, I also serve in the university, and I do find that during the past years, the students would like to pick up the so-called industrial country, the US, European country, as well as Japan, for their destination of the early career exploration. But so far, is this trend changed, especially when the TCA promote different possibility and also connection with other international partners? Is the stakeholder and also the students, especially for the outbound consideration, do they also prefer the Asian country, the neighboring country as their destination? I think that these two questions that I would like to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Should I respond right now?
I think we can have the Q&A session, and we will discuss further later.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
And I'm so sorry, I forgot to propose one question to Professor Xie. And so I will take some time to address this question. I learned from you, it is true that the technology is very important. The new technique offer the efficient channel for the bidirectional exchange and connection between the employee and also the employer. And you also mentioned that will also add the non-work time. For example, connect with the social media, as well as to receive the necessary information by the employer. And that will that still count as working hours? And as you mentioned, the monitoring system with the technology to monitor the employees' work time. My question is, how do we find the balance as a young talent, or what is your suggestion to the young talent to find the balance between the work hour and also their family hour and also their time? And you also, I would like to learn from your suggestion for the employer. How do they provide the extra resources or to pay more for their employee due to the new technique and also the technology communication process? Thank you. So I think we can have more further discussion later in our Q&A time. Without further ado, I would like to invite our third speaker, Professor Niaz Asadullah. Professor Niaz Asadullah teaches economics at Monash University, Malaysia campus, and he received his doctoral degree from Oxford University in 2005. And he held visiting and various academic positions at Malaya, Reading, Harvard, Oxford, Manchester, Kent, and other renowned and leading universities such as Chulalongkorn and Mindanao State University. Among current active affiliation, he is the Southeast Asia lead of the Global Labor Organization, GLA, a very important institution, and a fellow of IZA, Institute of Labor Economics. Professor Asadullah's research relates to labor, education, skill, poverty, inequality, well-being, and gender issue, with a focus on Southeast Asia. He has received funding from different government and also different organizations to support his research and also the recommendation to the stakeholders. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Asadullah. Professor, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry to butt in. Niaz, you're on mute. Can you please unmute yourself?
Okay, so thank you, sir, for your kind introduction. So before I proceed, can you confirm that my screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very visible.
So thank you. So I have been asked today to share my thoughts on how to sort of define skills in the 21st century labor market, and in that context, how can we future-proof education? So moving forward, the three questions that have been presented with are first about definition. Are we able to define Sorry, I think I lost my connection. Am I back?
Yes, you are online.
Sorry, I think I might have hit some button and then suddenly I lost the internet. So, so the first challenge we have is to define the relevant skills for the 21st century labor market. And the second one is that if these skills are foundational in nature, then what are they in specific terms? And the third issue is that how do they matter for worker well-being, such as having a job, having high income, and being satisfied with jobs. So let's start with the first challenge of defining skills for the 21st century. Now, if you think about it, the 21st century labor market is characterized by what I call 3 Ds: disruption, displacement, and digitization. To be more specific, disruption caused by technology, displacement of skills by machines, and digitization creating constant challenges for workers to adapt to changing working conditions. Now, these 3 Ds have collectively caused automation anxiety. The fear of technological unemployment, the fear of robots destroying routine traditional jobs. So in this forum today, we have a challenge: how to reinterpret and reinvent education so that our schools can prepare students and workers in ways so that when they graduate, they remain employed and relevant in the future labor market. So again, if I'm to elaborate, the challenge is to provide workers and youths with skills that complement machines and add value to automated production system, skills that help continually adapt to ways of working and new occupations, and lastly, skills to operate in a digital environment. Now, all these are essentially elements of non-routine cognitive skills, and they are analytical and interpersonal in nature. Collectively, you can call them new economy skills. Now, then we have another challenge. How should we define in more specific terms the full set of new economy foundational skills? Well, there are a number of competing ideas. One is World Economic Forum proposing a list of 16 specific skills that every worker need in our 21st century labor market. This involves 3 categories: foundational literacy, competencies, and character quality. On the other hand, a more recent report by the global consultancy powerhouse, McKinsey, has produced an expanded list of 56 items that they call distinct element of talent, or deltas. Now, these are again essentially a mix of skills and attitudes. For example, adaptability and the ability to cope with uncertainty are examples of attitudes. Now, these 56 deltas are further organized in 4 skill categories, such as cognitive, interpersonal, self-leadership, and digital. So that's how we are thinking around defining foundational skills for the future labor market. But you may stop me and ask, what is the broader significance of these new foundational skills? Well, Delta, as McKinsey has defined, the Delta proficiencies or 21st century foundational skills have been found to be powerful predictor of everything a 21st century worker cares about, such as having a job, having higher incomes, and enjoying higher job satisfaction. And research shows that the Delta effect isn't explained by differences in worker demographics and proficiencies in other elements. So let me conclude by summarizing the main takeaway. What the McKinsey report calls deltas is actually nothing but old wine in new bottle. It is just another extended set of analytical interpersonal skills, or a combination of what we popularly know as soft and hard skills. And yes, one consensus is there that we definitely need skills and attitudes to survive 21st century labor market. But we do have a challenge. Regardless of how we define the skills for the future labor market, the reality today is that millions of children are leaving schools even without 19th century foundational skills, which is about being able to read and write. Research therefore confirms a global skills deficit even among school children. And precisely for the same reason, the McKinsey report also finds an imperfect link between deltas and formal schooling. So again, the big question I think that we are debating today in this panel is what more can be done to future-proof education? In my view, we need to simultaneously create opportunities to acquire hard and soft skills. And this can be achieved by promoting opportunities for both numeracy and literacy early in the schooling cycle, as well as social emotional learning. And this will require smart investment in foundational skills and attitudes. Thank you, and I look forward to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Asadullah, for your very insightful remark and presentation. I was very curious about so far what we has been addressed seems to target at the white collar, just as you mentioned, the white collar talents. But in Asia, the most population, I would say, probably related to the blue collar group. And how do we empower the new skill and also the capacity for the blue collar workers and also the group? That could be an emerging challenge. And that will be related to my very humble observation that when we talk about the post-pandemic resilience and recovery, sometimes the public sector will set up a very rosy prospect that everyone will enjoy working from home. But for the blue-collar community or the group, it will be very difficult to really work from home while earning their living. So my very preliminary thought is how do we address to the blue-collar group, especially the young talents in this blue-collar group, how do we provide the empowerment and also capacity training program for the stakeholders? Okay, I do look forward to the follow-up discussion and learn from our speakers. And finally, last but not the least, it will be my pleasure to introduce Mr. Lin Jifu. Ms. Lin is the founder and also a young CEO of a startup specializing in science, engineering, and law. After serving as a patent engineer in one of the top 10 law and patent firms in Taiwan, Jifu served as a project manager at Global Brand Management Association, the GBMA. Subsequently, he worked for Lewis Group patent and law firm as the business development manager, serving over 100 clients and expanding the business to the Thai market. And with the aspiration to help people from Southeast Asia and India, especially in India, there have been increasing number of the Indian young talent and young engineers studying in Taiwan, taking internship in Taiwan, and also started their career in Taiwan. To start their own business in Taiwan, Mr. Lin founded Startboard in 2017 as a startup company, which is the first ASEAN Indian startup incubator in Taiwan. Startboard has served nearly 30 Southeast Asian and Indian entrepreneurs, mentoring their business from 0 to 1. And it also partners with many international accelerator, organization, and government office in 6 countries across the ASEAN and India. And I personally learned a lot from Mr. Lin regarding how to facilitate the international students studying in Taiwan to launch their own early career business in this country. And he contributed a lot to this endeavor. So without further ado, Zhifu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alan, to invite me to such an honor to participate in this forum. And the Starboard is a platform for entrepreneurs who are interested in start a business, especially from South Asia, Indian country, who want to start a business in Taiwan. So as Alan said, before I was with my previous boss, Professor Chen, to establish a non-NGO called GBMA. We hope we can help the Taiwan's brand to promote to the global market. So before 10 years ago, we believe talent is the most important for all of the company if we want big success. So we find out 10 years ago, we find out, wow, it's from South Asia country, the student in Taiwan is more than 30,000. But until now, it's more than 70,000. So we believe the talent is the most important for all the company success, for especially you want to develop business to the global market. So Starboard, we are focused on that. And because we believe if we can keep the good talent in Taiwan, so that means we can help more Taiwanese brand to promote to the global market. But today, my topic will focus on the talent issue in the post-pandemic era. And as we know, the Taiwan industry is transforming from the manufacturer to branding and service. I think it's obviously because Taiwan, we're facing the many issues. One is more important thing is we're facing the low birth rate. I think it's difficult to solve this problem. And so, so that's why the industry is necessary trait to transform to the service or branding from manufacturer the industry. So I will discuss the talent issue from 2 perspectives. The first, from industry side, I think last week I been invited to the new Taipei city government. I asked them one information. I asked them every day come to Taipei city government to set up a new company. What's the percentage is under 5 million capital? So you know the answer? The answer is more than 90%. So what's meaning? Is more than 90% in Taiwan is built by SME. But we have a big problem if you want to promote your business to the global market. I think not many people understanding if you want to hire a foreigner, your limit capital is 5 million. Do you figure out this number? I just sharing even the new Taipei city is a big city in Taiwan. Is more than 90% company set up new company. The capital is under the 5 million. So it means maybe have more than 90% SME company. They don't have they are not have a qualified to hire the foreigner. So how to promote the business? If you want to say I want to promote my brand to the global market, how to begin? Even the talent you can hire to be your team, right? So I think my first perspective is I think the government and all our not just foundation, everyone, we need to try to together to sharing this information to them. Actually, the first thing is not just for the birth rate the issue. We also tell them why the higher the global talent, how important for you, and how you to have this have a qualified to hire this one. So So I think the first thing you tell them, okay, if you want to hire a foreigner, maybe you can increase your capital. And the other issue I don't mention, your turnover need to be 10 million at least. So I think it's for many start company or SME for beginning, SME is very difficult. But the government have passed a law like you can to be like a Starboard member or I3 member if you within the 5 years company. Actually, this minimum capital will be you can be removed. So I think will be very good for SME company. But the important thing is we need to sharing this information to everyone. And the second perspective is for talent. I think we need to encourage more company to hire, have a global view, global outlook talent. For sure, of course, for Taiwanese talent, of course, for international, the foreign talent too. Because I think it's very important because I think we grow up from the different culture, with the different language. So I think if you build by the global team, you can have a more like creative, or have motivation. You can have a more inspiration. So I think the second one is for the talent. We need to encourage them to, for example, to teach the foreigner how to hire themselves, right? Actually, the visa system is not too easy. So I think for government, maybe we can try to focus on to simplify the system. For example, I have some friends, they don't understanding the waiting APRC and working APRC, what's different. And you need to provide many documents to prove. So I think for example, for that. So I think that's why I'm thinking we can help encourage Taiwan's talent we can more communicate with the global talent. They can have a more motivation, more creative. And the second, we can encourage to teach the foreigner, the talent to how to hire themselves. So it's both sides. The first side with for industry side, the second is for talent side. That's why after I believe more and more company and more talent, they can have more information, communicate. So in the end, the advantage in the end, I believe, is for Taiwanese company, because that's why I said before beginning, we need to keep the good talent, and then we can help the Taiwan's brand to promote to the global market. And the second is last issue I want to mention is as for holiday, right? Because if we want to hire a foreigner, actually Taiwan's company need to understanding maybe maybe you need to prepare like a 20 days or 25 days for them. Why? Because they need to go home, right? It's impossible we just take a rest during the Chinese New Year. Maybe we have a Chinese New Year, but every country they have different culture. Maybe they don't necessarily need to have a Chinese New Year, right? And then maybe they want to go home. Maybe they want to stay like 2 or 3 weeks with their family, right? So I think that will be very important mindset for Taiwan's company to understanding how to respect about the talent in every country. So because sometimes for Taiwan's company, they can accept. So, oh my God, you need to take a rest like 30 days or 25 days. But for them, it's difficult. They will miss their parent, they will miss their family, right? So I think we have many the information, and the government, I think we can, or foundation, we are all the entity can try to link all the information, and we can be the bridge to let the company and the talent can have more communicate. Maybe in the end, we can amend the law to help this one be easier. Okay, so today is my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Zhifu, for sharing with us your practical experiences and also lesson learned from the effort of the Starboard. Okay, we had navigated 4 excellent presentation with a lot of encouraging and enlightening insight from our speakers. And so I would like to announce that we have still have some time for our quick question and answer. So I just propose a few questions to our speakers. And so far, I would like to open the floor to the every speakers for sharing your insights and also some response to the questions. And everyone will have 3 minutes due to the time constraint. I'm so sorry for the poor time management due to, as a moderator, but due to very detailed discussion and also the abundant knowledge offered by our speakers, I do not want to interrupt each of them. So with that, everyone will have 3 minutes for Q&A responses and to share add up insight with the audience and also with the panel. So let me start from Professor Xie. Professor Xie, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. As to your questions, I have to say it's a big one, not necessarily a small one, but it involved macro and involved micro. So in terms of the response to the definition of working hour, non-working hour, in terms of the monitoring of the employee, in terms of the balance between the employer and employee, and the young workers' talents, how to facilitate them, how to protect them. I would say, first one, state power versus market power, the balance, and then state power increasing. The state power should increase. In macro situation, the state power should serve as the social welfare, to defend the social welfare, and then to give or provide more chance to occupational training, education, and employment service to the workers. And then for this, it will be the macro parts. For the micro parts, the state power should serve to fairly arbitrate the new definitions, the new situations, maybe on case by case, much efficiently, much fair, in a much fair. But I cannot say which one is much fair, because the changing situation is still there. And then, so I think the intervention to the market is still would be necessary up to the, okay. And then for the social response, human rights group will serve more. So non-NGOs, non-profit will to the points, to the issues. And and for the union, it will be easier to much easier to organize, to defend nowadays. You see, nowadays we have 4,000. Can you expect nowadays we have 4,000 unions in place? Okay, for the employer, I think you have to face the music, the situation, the real situation. For the SME, and then we found that in Chinatown, even Chinatown, small vendors, they have organized a union in there with them. So the situation we can, and for the working places, the practices should innovatively develop more working place, the practices in the working place, new. I can't tell which. And as to the blue collar, the gig and casual situation will become much more a normal practice. Okay, but we have to redefine even the white collar to be blue collars, because low pay will be the situation, because their job gradually replaced by the technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Xie, for your response and also suggestions. I forgot to propose a quick question for Zhifu. So for Zhifu, I would like to ask, what will be the next step for Startball? And that's for the first question. And the second question follow-up is, do you find any similar or like-minded organization or the startup accelerator in India, since we have been working with India for a long time under the new southbound policy? So do you find any similar institution just like your Startball in India or in Indonesia to facilitate and help Taiwanese young talent to work in different localities in the region? Thank you. So I would like to learn from you later. And secondly, I would like to invite Gabby for your response and also your suggestion to the question that I raised. Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you for the great questions. So I do know that TAEF focus on developing and partnership with the southbound policy country. As a matter of fact, since our program is also a government funding project, we do have a lot of correlations and relationship with company that actually has the need to go to the southbound policy listed of country. In response to your questions, actually, I look at the digits for last year. So in 2021, when we first launched the program for the international students in Taiwan, half of them graduated after they finished the program. And in that half of them, 12 of them found like a full-time positions in Taiwan so they can stay after graduation. And out of that 12% who are employee currently in Taiwan, 2/3 of them are from the southbound policy country. So we have students from Malaysia, from Indonesia, and Vietnam that successfully stay in Taiwan to serve Taiwan's local industry. From the other aspect, besides these people got hired by local Taiwanese company, from the other aspect, it's that within this 2 year, we have 133 students join our program. Out of these 133 program, there are 74% of them are from southbound policy countries, which means actually when we partner with the local industry, even though we did not specify that there are, special quota or put emphasis on certain countries or certain industry, you still can kind of see the southbound policy launched by Taiwan is taking off, and it's at probably its peak right now. So the local company and corporation, they actually want to hire people and talents from these countries just because they have, some sort of project or affair that was going on within their company that has something to do with using talents from this country. So from the digits that TCA has is that even though we do not lay out a standard or put aside special quota for these countries, you can still see the turn of current industry and the use of talents are greatly associated with southbound policy. So that was my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. I'm delighted to learn from you that new southbound policy also linked to the TCA for the talent mobility and circulation. And I do look forward to the enhanced practice of the new southbound policy in the years to come.
For sure.
Okay, thank you. And thirdly, I would like to invite Professor Asadullah to address your responses. And yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Would you kindly repeat the question that you had for me, please?
My question is, so far we touch upon the discussion and concern goes to the white collar labor and talent. And how do we provide the sufficient support to the blue-collar laborers and also talents? Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a very important question, because at the heart of my lecture today was the new inequality in the labor market caused by rapid automation. And what we have highlighted is this rapid shift of skills away from routine jobs, both jobs that are manual in nature as well as repetitive cognitive jobs. So the shift of skills away from these jobs, which are typically blue-collar jobs, to jobs that are more intensive in non-routine analytical and non-routine manual skills. And those are the 21st century white-collar jobs. Now, there is something in between, which is a metal-collared job. And that's where the robots come in. And I think you're absolutely right that, well, the anxiety about inequality tomorrow is about this uneven social protection that we have across skill categories. And the first victim of automation is actually the blue-collar jobs, because those are jobs that are easy to digitize, jobs that are easy to automate. But there is a category of blue-collar jobs where there is still involvement of dexterity, where there is still involvement of human creativity, where a task cannot be fully automated. And I think that's where more investment has to go into. And the challenge, I think, for tomorrow is that while technology is destroying jobs, it is also leading to innovations, creating different types of jobs. So, and therefore the challenge is really for us to upskill workers so that they acquire those jobs, so that we become a complement to machine instead of being displaced and replaced by robots. And again, I think the challenge is that we have to accept the reality that blue-collar jobs will not be the main source of employment in the future. And we have to therefore provide social protection in this transition away from blue-collar jobs into skilled jobs. And for those that remain, we have to give them the right skills so that they become complement to robots and machines in performing manual jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Asadullah, for sharing with us. And I will say the key words of your response is to upskill. It is true that we need to learn from each other on the empowerment and upskill efforts. And finally, I would like to invite Zhifu to say a few words regarding my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I think talent sustainability is require continue to do the effort. So we will keep going to do the effort for our core value to keep the good talent in Taiwan, for sure South Asia country and Indian talent, and we hope we can help more Taiwanese brand promote to the South Asia Indian market. Yeah. And I think I will love, because we have many partners in India and Indonesia for incubator or some foundation. So we are lovely to help to be the bridge between the Taiwan and the South Asia Indian country. So I think, as I say, the talent sustainability is always, it's not just us, I think everyone, we can do some effort for that. And we respect the talent, we respect the company, everyone, we can more have community. So the important thing is we hope Taiwan's brand can be through the good talent, so we can let all the world to understanding the Taiwan, the power and the good quality and the brand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Zhifu, for your remark. So far, we successfully navigate the full presentation, and we are yet to receive further questions from the floor and from the audience. So I would like to conclude this session by thanking all of the presenter and speaker for the wonderful presentation and insight shared with all of us. So thank you. I would like to turn the floor to Chris.
All right, so thank you so much everyone for joining our conference. We hope that you were able to gain insights from the presentations and discussions that we had from the two panels. So if you wish to learn more about the topic, you can visit the respective websites of the KS Japan and TAEF for access to free publication on the future of work. So on behalf of the organizers, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, we thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you again in our future events. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So do we skip the final synthesis or concluding remark by Rebecca?
No, Rabe actually did the welcome.
Okay. So can I add a few notes on the final concluding remark for 1 minute?
All right, Dr. Young, if you want to, please go ahead.
So first of all, I would like to thank the endorsement and support from CAS for continued help and also partnership with us in this very important project, the future of work for Asian youth. And today, we try our best to clarify 3 important aims. The first one is the misunderstanding of the future of work for Asian youth. It's not that rosy. We encounter a lot of challenging, but we will definitely work together to tackle this issue. And the second aim is mismatch, especially the skills taught in the education system and the real skill needed in the real world. So with the presentation, we understand how this gap should be bridged. And the third aim is the mishandling. So from the perspective of government and also from the enterprise, we need to provide a better institutional environment and policy environment for the practice of good governance. Also as for the enterprise, just as Zhifu mentioned, the international leaves for the international talent are very important since the circulation will be practiced in different countries. And for our foreign talents, we also need to provide reasonable international leave for this specific partner. And finally, with this continual effort by both institutions, CAS and TAEF, I would say that TAEF will continuously to endorse the continuous project of the future of work. Since we mostly cover the country nearby Taiwan and also such as Vietnam and Malaysia. But for other Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, as well as the India, Sri Lanka, and other South Asian countries, we not yet have the resource and also the time to explore. So my humble suggestion will be to continue work with CAS for explore more country profile in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and other South Asian countries. And it will be our great pleasure on behalf of TAEF to continue support this for organizing webinar, conference, workshop, and even in-person site visit or field trip into this country to explore the real face and real challenge of the for the future of work among the young Asian. And my second request or suggestion is, according to today's presentation, we already correct the presentation and also the remark from the speakers. And TAEF has also arranged our intern and our colleague to record the minutes. And we will be happy to share the minutes and the script to all the speakers afterwards. And I would like to seek for the agreement from CAS. If we can invite all the speakers to turn the presentation into a short feature article within 3,000 words, the English words, so that we can combine this valuable insight into different real piece of the discussion. So this analytical article or the feature article can be compiled as one of the policy brief or the small booklet published jointly by CAS and TAEF. So with that, I would like to ask Chris to ask the permission from CAS Japan to see if it is okay to collect all the feature articles by the speakers so that we can combine into a publication and share those publications with the government sector as the gentle reminder to them, and also to share those with the think tank and like-minded NGO as well as the enterprise to provide our recommendation and also humble suggestion to them to really facilitate the young talent for a better and resilient future. With that, I will conclude my my remark, and also once again thank you for the kind support from CAS Japan. Thank you, Chris.
All right, so I think that officially ends the program. So again, thank you everybody for your participation, and we hope to see you again in the future events. So thank you and have a nice day ahead. Bye.